Mark, are we recording? Yes, we're recording. Board Member Freeman?
Present.
Board Member Jolie?
Present.
Board Member Kelly? Board Member Mercier? Board Member Ridley?
Present.
Council Member Russell? Council Member Wright?
Present.
Mayor Sierra?
Present.
Vice Chair Pereski?
Present.
Chair Moore?
Present.
And I just want to note that Board Member Kelly is joining online right now.
I move the motion.
All in favor of approving the minutes from August 12th, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Aye.
Oh. All right, thank you. Brenda, do we have anyone who wishes to address us from the public?
No, we do not.
Okay. Moving on to item 6, new business. And I will turn it over. I'm sorry, where to go? Oh, Adam Marquez.
Good evening, Water Sewer Board. My name is Adam Marquez. I'm Utilities Engineering Supervisor, and these items are the Allen Water Treatment Plant Phase 2 and Service Center Space Improvements construction contracts. So we have been in the design phase for the Allen Water Treatment Plant and Service Center Phase 2 space improvements. At the Allen Water Treatment Plant, the plan is to house approximately 25 engineering, business solutions, billing, and environmental compliance staff. Currently, myself and the rest of the engineering team, as well as the environmental compliance team, works in a temporary office trailer at the Allen plant, and the business solutions and billing staff work at the Civic Center. This project would bring those approximately 25 employees to a single building at the Allen plant. It would also provide improvements to the site security, as well as drainage and parking. At the service center, the intent is to house all the distribution and collection staff, which is approximately 18 employees, thereby replacing the 2 temporary office trailers that they use on site right now, and make additional facility upgrades. Here's a closer look at the improvements at the Allen Water Treatment Plant. We, as mentioned, are going to build a 2-story, 8,400 square foot office building on the south side of the Allen plant site. We'll be adding plenty of parking to accommodate the new folks. We will also be moving the main access gate for the Allen plant off of Layton, so that folks turning into the Allen plant no longer have to sit in Layton Avenue as they wait for the gate to open. In addition to that, we will be adding 2 additional swing gates that basically separates the public access from the private access, so that folks from the public may enter through that first gate and then park there in front of the building if they need to visit the utilities department. So there will be on the inside, there will be an all-staff a conference room that is large enough to host utilities all staff, as well as enough offices and workstations to house the approximately 25 employees from engineering, business solutions, and environmental compliance. During construction, we will be adding parallel parking on the south side of Layton as a temporary measure to accommodate the construction craft, as well as some of our staff as the south side of the site becomes a construction site. The Layton Avenue will remain a 2-lane road, so there will be access in both directions still. And then looking at the service center improvements, we'll be renovating and building an addition to the distribution and collections building 11 at the service center. These improvements are approximately 3,500 square feet of a new building and renovations to approximately 810 square feet of the existing building. We'll be using a pre-engineered rectangular metal building and then tying into the existing building 11 with that sort of pie-shaped piece that will be new construction as well. We'll be making significant improvements to distribution and collections locker rooms, as well as enough offices and workstations to house approximately 18 employees in this space, and adding a conference room. Also on the east side of the building, we'll be putting in new pull-through garage bays that'll improve distribution and collections ability to do their jobs with their large vehicles and equipment. So here's a look at the selection process. After receiving non-competitive pricing from PCL Construction, we decided to off-ramp this project from a CMGC delivery and do a best value competitive solicitation. So we issued requests for proposal and evaluated them for best value. And GH Phipps Construction Company won that process for the Allen Water Treatment Plant project. There's a look at their base price. And then similarly for the service center, Rhino Tracks Construction won the best value selection process for that project. So here's a closer look at their cost breakdowns. For GH Phipps, their price is $5.33 million. For Rhino Tracks Construction, it's $2.86 million. And so we're requesting a total project authorization for the Allen plant for including the typical staff managed 10% staff managed contingency, requesting approximately $5.87 million for the Allen plant and approximately $3.14 million for the service center with Rhino Tracks Construction. Any questions?
No
Chair,
questions for Adam?
We have a question in the room, Chair.
Great. Please go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, I do have I'm just going based on my memory. Peter, if you can help me understand this. Didn't we approve this a while ago? Was that for the original building?
So can you go back to the Allen plant? So there's essentially three phases to the improvements that we're making at the Allen plant. And the first phase was to the Allen plant itself. So we added a hallway, office space, workstations for the operators, a control room, a server room, a maintenance staff area, and bathroom. So that was phase one. So that's a contract we've talked about that we are in the process of actually closing out with the contractor right now. In the meantime, we've been designing phase two, which is this Allen treatment plant standalone building, which is a basic rectangular administrative building that you see there. And then at the same time, we've been designing the expansion to the service center. And so what that does is that houses everybody else that are in temporary trailers or in other locations, so that there's staff here in the Civic Center. We will still maintain a rotating staff member for the front counter here, so when customers come to the Civic Center, they can do their utility business just like normal. We'll move the remainder of the staff to this new office building, and also have a public-facing counter at this building as well. So we'll actually have 2 locations for the staff to come and interface with utilities. And then the third phase we anticipate coming sometime next year, is we need to remove an existing shed, which will expand some of our parking, and put in more permanent chemical storage building area, essentially where the current trailer is. And so if you see where in that aerial where it says access gates, immediately below that is essentially where we're going to put a chemical storage building. And then we also have to just do overall site improvements is the last piece of this. So curb and gutter and asphalt and cleaning up the remainder of the site. So by the time we get through all 3 phases of this, the entire utilities department between the service center and the Allen plant will have updated, modernized facilities that will last decades into the future. And so you're probably thinking that first phase. So this is phase 2.
That was like,
Yep.
wait a second. Okay, thank you for explaining. So
Sure.
he was mentioning that they're going to move the gate. So therefore, I assume he was saying that you're going to have parking, so that green area, you guys are going to create parking so visitors can come over there.
So the orange on the map there is
On the right side?
is our parking. So there's no parking in front of the gate, because we actually have chemical fill stations there.
Oh.
And so there will be fencing along all of that, that ties into the new gate. That's the blue line there.
Yes,
the blue
I
lines are the
noticed.
gates.
Got it. Okay, thank you for explaining that. I appreciate it.
Chair,
Any
there's
further
another
questions?
question in the room. So
Go for it, please.
Councilmember?
Thank you. On here, I'm looking at $165,000 between the 2 in tax and permit fee allowances. Who do we pay the tax and permit fees to?
So we have a 3.8% construction use tax that essentially goes to the city, as well as a 0.25% tax to Arapahoe County.
So as an enterprise fund, when we build projects, we have to pay the taxes to the general fund for the general fund services that are associated with doing construction projects. And so that's what that taxes is. So it makes the general fund whole as it relates to enterprise fund projects. So we pay just like everybody else pays.
Okay. And what about the permit fees?
So that's part of, again, that goes as well to the city. We're basically paying the community development and the building departments to issue our construction permits and occupancy permits.
So if you were not an enterprise fund, you would not be paying these fees?
I'm not exactly sure how it works within the general fund if they do a interdepartmental transfer for these types of charges. As an enterprise fund, or if you were an outside party, we pay our way as it relates to services provided by those departments through the taxes and permit fees. We do that on all of our projects.
But it's still taxpayer money just being moved around to another taxpayer account.
So minor clarification, it's ratepayer money because water is rates and fees, not taxes. So it's ratepayer money going to pay for a fee-based service from the general fund. So general fund gets tax revenue, but it also gets fee revenue from services like this. So there's no taxes involved. I mean, that's with the exception of use tax is a tax, but it's essentially we use the rates to pay that tax for that fee of that service, if that makes sense. So yes, it's customers paying for customer
It's just
service.
money from it's money from citizens just being moved around, I get, to simplify it, I guess, so.
It is, and the reason why we do that is because we don't want to unfairly burden the general fund
Right.
with services being provided to the enterprise fund.
Yeah, the more I think about it, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah.
But
And then with,
City's
and
paying
then
the
with the
city.
permits,
Yeah,
So-
it is. It's the city paying the city,
Yeah.
and it's appropriately charging the water enterprise fund or the sewer enterprise fund for those services as opposed to supplementing those or subsidizing those services through other tax mechanisms in the general fund. And so we're accurately allocating the cost to the appropriate payment mechanism from the customer in this case, which is the water sewer customer.
Okay, thank you.
And then if you focused on the sewer side of it, that type project become more apparent that the ratepayer base is much different than the taxpayer base. It's
Yes.
less apparent on the water side, but that principle becomes much more apparent on the sewer side.
Yeah, and so when the way this is actually funded in the budget is I believe it's 70% water and 30% sewer fund, because the people that are housed here provide services to either the sewer fund or the water fund based on that proportionate share. And so we allocate those costs appropriately because of those services. Now that sewer fund service has a broader service base because of because of some of the activities that are done on behalf of the connector districts through the billing department most specifically. So we try to make sure that we're allocating the costs to the right department and that no department or fund is subsidizing another to the degree that we can get it as close as possible.
Any further questions?
Chair,
I-
so the mayor has a question.
Yeah, just a quick question, Chair. Probably a small line item, but just, so the memo does state that there's going to be key cards that are part of this item, and I know that there's a sizable capital project line item for next year's budget to standardize access across all city facilities. Is this taking that into account?
yes, we did coordinate with that project. My understanding is that that project did exclude the Allen plant. And so, but we coordinated with that project in terms of we're going to have the matching specifications and equipment that can integrate with the rest of the city.
Is there a reason why we excluded Allen treatment plant for that?
So it gets back to the larger project is the one you've seen through the general fund projects. And this is an enterprise fund specific project specific to the Allen plant. And so we're coordinating from a specifications perspective to make sure we're using the same thing. However, it's being funded out of this project through the enterprise fund.
Okay, that makes sense.
That way we're not charging the general
Yeah.
fund for it.
I was thinking that was where the intergovernment transfer would happen, but all right, sounds good.
Yep.
Thank you.
And Chair, I believe Councilmember Wright had a follow-up question.
I was just an informational question. What is, on page 10, they said something about Division D and C, I believe it was. What is that?
Go ahead.
The exhibits.
No,
It says
division.
Utilities,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Division, D and C.
Yes, the distribution and collections division of the
Okay,
utilities
that's what it-
department. So those
okay.
are the folks who work on our distribution systems.
Yeah, I didn't know what D and C meant, so, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah, we are acronym heavy in the utilities space. So thank you for having us clarify that.
Can I ask a question also? On the 30% on the sewer side, does Littleton pay for half of that or no?
No, so what, this is all Englewood this is all Englewood based, and what we do for the utilities department is we bill the Englewood connector district customers through our billing department. So Littleton handles their work all separately with the joint venture and SPR. Englewood Utilities serves those 11 connector districts that come through the Englewood Utilities Department through our billing staff. So that's through Sarah's business solution staff. We handle all their billing. And so so Littleton has nothing actually to do with this project because there's not a direct connection to SPR.
Okay, so as far as Englewood citizens, are they paying for it too, not just the connector districts?
Yes, that's correct. So we have a line item in the sewer enterprise fund budget for capital that's outside of SPR capital. So that's how we keep that separate. So that's no portion of it would go to City of Englewood. It would only be for the ratepayers that pay into Englewood's sewer fund, which is City of Englewood and then our connector districts that we have agreements with.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any further? All right, then can I get a motion to approve agenda items 6A1 and 6A2 as written?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving on to 6B. And Peter, I think you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is a standard renewal item that we talk about annually. And so this is our as-needed on-call water line repair services. So these are the services that help supplement our distribution and collections crews, especially in times when we have unforeseen incidences like breaks and specifically more major breaks. So if we look at our water main break frequency, to date for 2025, we are at 31 breaks, realizing that a lot of our breaks occur in the winter and the last 4 months of the year tend to have some breaks. They tend to concentrate around, the holidays too, for some reason. So, so we anticipate that there's going to be that this number will go up. The industry standard for a system our size is right around 40. So we're still higher than the industry standard. However, we expect that trend will continue to go down over time as we continue to make improvements in the distribution system. However, it's going to take many years to get there. That's our goal. Ultimately, right now, we complete a lot of those line breaks with internal staff and our distribution and collection crews. However, there are times that we'll bring in an on-call contractor to help supplement those staff resources, because sometimes those breaks will occur in the middle of the night, and if we've got staff working 16 straight hours, then we quickly run out of staff to be able to work at the system. So we have well, I guess I just covered this. So availability of staff, work hours and weekends, and we should have added holidays on this, and preventative maintenance work then gets deprioritized, because if all of our staff is working on these breaks on emergencies, then our programmatic work that we need to complete doesn't get done. And that's excuse me, that's kind of the pattern that the utility had fallen into prior to these changes that we made a few years ago. So essentially the scope of work is emergency water line repairs, valve replacement as needed, and as needed main or appurtenance repairs and or replacement. So it's just basically distribution system parts as they break or as we see a need for a change. Sometimes we'll exercise a valve, it'll break. It won't necessarily result in a leak, but it means it's a valve that we need to replace so that we can ensure system isolation in case there was a future break. So the renewal that we're looking for is with CNL. The contract amount is this is an upward limit contract amount of $1 million. Right now, to date, we've spent $310,000 of that $1 million. This is an as needed thing. We have a couple projects that we're working with CNL on. Which was it? I'm gonna turn this over to Sarah for just 1 second.
So one of the reasons that we put $1 million in last year is that we knew we were going to do a Union Avenue water line replacement. We presented that to council a little over a year and a half ago. And so CNL was the ideal contractor for that particular project. you will see that coming through here. I believe it's next month. We're actually doing a new contract with them for that amount, but that was one of the considerations for $1 million. So as these projects come through, we would use up that $1 million for these other smaller water line projects. One of the reasons Union Avenue will be slightly different is because we ended up including that into the state revolving fund loan as the lead program is coming in as less than expected.
Yeah, so again, this is an upper limit. Right now we're at 310,000. We like to have the availability for when when emergencies or projects arise. But it's ultimately also governed by what the budget line item is. So that is the recommendation is for the renewal of that contract. So we're available for any questions.
Floor is open.
Chair Moore, it's Cammie. I have a question.
Please, go
Sorry, and I completely missed this if you said this, but is this just strictly for like scheduling of projects or emergencies or both?
So this is for both. So this is any kind of construction related activities for line breaks or when scheduled in the sense that through the course of the year, we identify maybe a reach of pipe or a set of valves that needs to be replaced. So they're not necessarily macro scheduled, but they become ongoing scheduled throughout the course of the year as we uncover more and more issues.
Okay, I just, so this will be the only contract that's coming through for on-call, so the total amount that you guys are requesting on an annual basis is $1 million, so we're not going to see another contract for emergency on-call at another $1 million or anything like that. This is it?
No, that is correct. This is the
Okay.
contract. Now, our next item, what you will see is we'll have multiple contracts. So to your question, so I'll get ahead of it. There are multiple contracts that equal the line item amount. However, we don't unless there's a real reason to exceed that line item amount, we manage to that line item amount. So you'll see that in the next presentation. So I'll cover that a little bit more. So in this instance, it's one contract and it's $1 million, and we manage it based on as need. So if we don't spend the $1 million if we don't need to.
Okay, so max not to exceed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Yes, may I ask a question, Chair?
Yep.
So, Peter, I was wondering, if you look at the numbers, what would you say is the difference between staff versus a contractor that addresses these issues? What would be the ratio?
We could do that analysis, but from a more general, we can get you better answers than the general answer I'm going to give you. So we typically defer to in-house staff when their routine, normal business hours are not far outside of business hour breaks. It's when we have either significant breaks that exceed the capabilities of our equipment and our staff resources, or if we had an instance, I believe it was last year, where over the course of 4 days we had 12 breaks. And so there's a certain point in time where basically there was a break and then another break and another break and another break, and it was cascading through this part of the system. And we ultimately got it controlled. But in that instance, we quickly exhausted our staff resources. So I would say more often we are using in-house resources, and the outside contract resources are brought in on more significant breaks or when we have well outside of business hours or repeated breaks.
I understood that point, but what I'm trying to demonstrate is that, okay, so here is your forecasting that you're going to have certain amount of, you have a database that it shows the forecasting for the year, how many breaks. So So I'm just looking at, I assume when you get a contractor, then first of all, I'm thinking about accountability. Then I'm thinking about the prices, of course, is increased because it's an odd hours. And you consider that cost. And then also, most importantly, the opportunity that is lost to learn from these breakages. Because I would imagine that if you have a staff that is really good at this, and they're trained, and they get an opportunity to teach the next employees, to be able to really, at the end of the day, maybe in a couple of years, you will have staff that are capable of being on, what do you call it, not overtime, but graveyard shift, and then accommodate all of that. And I would imagine it would be a much better cost to spend to kind of make a plan to have an in-house trained staff that they can handle this. So that's why I was asking you the initial question that what is the ratio difference of the payout that is considered in this situation?
And you're getting to a very important aspect that we are evolving and balancing, and that's the in-house staffing up versus contract support. So what we want to do is we want to staff to a level that we can maintain a certain amount of work availability to keep that staff fully utilized, while not overhiring to the point where we have too big of a staff because these breaks, they're unpredictable. And so what we do is we staff with a baseline level of staffing to do the day-to-day programmatic, general lower end estimated amount of emergency work, and then we supplement with the contractors. Now, as it relates to the expertise piece, we do still have staff. Instead of 5 people staffing a break, we have 1 person staff the break when it's contractor. So our staff are still working with the contractor, so we don't lose the knowledge as it relates to the break itself. So that piece is covered. The second piece is somewhat of an evolution that we've been talking about internally, which is as we mature in this newly transformed utility into the future, one of the ideas that we're working out the economics on is an in-house line crew, essentially. And so a crew that handles in-house construction, because we have a significant amount of 4-inch line that over time we should get replaced. And I believe it's 20 miles. And so in that instance, there's a defined amount of workload that we could staff a predictable staffing on, and we would get a much better pricing approach than if we contracted that all out. And so this is the balance that we look at every time we're looking at in-house resources versus external resources. And so right now we've evolved away from when we first started. We were contracting a lot of this out because we just didn't have the systems in place. We've now moved more of that into internal resources. There's going to be a point in time where we want to have some amount that's just contracted out because it's not cost effective to staff up to that level. But that's, as over the next couple of years, you'll see us come to you with an evolution that we've been talking about for probably about the last 6 to 9 months. It's something we're actually considering in the master plan process. So I think we're going to use that process to help really work it out and see what is the right balance. Because I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of contract resources versus outside versus in-house. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
we look at it. We were looking at it, and we'll continue to look at it.
Thank you.
Chair, we have another question in the room.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. To piggyback off what was just asked, how often does the city just decide to wait to repair any break until, let's say it happens on a Friday or first thing Saturday, and you decide to wait until you are staffed on that Monday? I live in one of those areas where there were multiple breaks, and we just saw a stream going down multiple streaks over the weekend. and the repairs happened, Monday and Tuesday. So how often does that happen?
I would say, so I don't know exactly how many times, but it is the first evaluation that we make when we go and look at a break. If we look at a break and we see that it's not a major break and it's a leak, and then we can let it leak for a day or two. A lot of times what we'll see something occur in the evening, and then we'll make sure that we're watching it through the night, and we'll get a crew out there the next morning. That's more cost effective than immediately hiring the contractor to come out and address it after hours. And so this is where we utilize our in-house expertise in the distribution and collection system to gauge, is this one that we're comfortable letting leak for a period of time, and then we'll come back with our in-house resources and schedule it for the next morning or the next Monday. Or is this one that we're pretty sure is potentially is going to get worse, or we already know is really deep, or is a big line, or we already know has a need like that. So it's really one of the first screening mechanisms that we use to make sure that we're providing the most affordable response and cost-effective response. Because if it leaks overnight, it's not worth it to spend the extra money and the premium to fix it. How often that happens, I would say every leak is evaluated that way. How often we wait versus not is we can probably get that number generally, but I would say it's guessing. I would say maybe a quarter to a third of them, because a lot of times they're just small service line leaks that we can come back. And we've had situations where lines have leaked for weeks because we weren't comfortable that we could isolate the system without potentially having an uncontrollable leak. So we had a controlled leak, and that's also the reason why we've installed so many valves, is to get more control over the system that we didn't have. So it's not an exact number, but it is a screening that we typically do as part of this process. It's all to make sure that we're responding cost effectively.
And I think that's smart. Thank you.
Peter, may I ask you a question since this rise? I'm sorry. But so when you say by control leak, meaning that when you get a leak somewhere in this pipe, when you fix that, you put a valve there, so it's just in case when the future, let's say, 1,000 feet away from that, you can shut down from here, so that way you can control and fix the other one. Is that how?
It's not exactly what I mean. So what I mean in the circumstance that I'm thinking about is that if you recall, it was a couple of years ago. It was just east of Broadway. Yeah. It was one block east of Broadway, and we had a leak that leaked there, I believe, for 6 weeks. Yeah. And the reason why is because when we went to the other end of the street and tried to repair it, we broke that valve. Well, the valve broke. We didn't intentionally break it. It broke because it's an old system. Yeah. And then that started to leak. And we weren't comfortable that if we went in and cut into that pipe that we could get it shut down. And so we had to wait for the parts that we ordered that took that long to come in. And we actually adopted a whole new way of addressing these types of leaks with insertion valves, which we inserted 91 of those this year. And so those are where you can actually install a valve on a live line. And we didn't have that capability before those leaks a couple of years ago. We have those capabilities now. We have valves on the shelf so that we don't get into a situation like that again. These smaller leaks that will sometimes pop up, we'll watch them. We'll send people out in the middle of the night just to check on them to make sure that they haven't gotten bigger, they're not undermining the street. And then we'll come back the next morning and schedule that repair.
Thank you, Peter.
Can I ask a question also? And I don't remember if it was on this item, but I saw this on a couple items because it's the same budget line. How can we, like the farthest line over on the budget is a negative 1.895 million. So how does that happen? There was some of those negative numbers in the far right line.
I'm assuming that's in the, in the contract approval summary. So those summary documents that are attached with each of these, a lot of times it's not accounting for what would be spent in one calendar year versus another calendar year. So it appears, because we're encumbering the funds now, that line item is negative, but it's negative if it were all spent in like this year, for example, but instead those are multi-year projects. So, or over over 1 year period, over 2 calendar years. That is why it appears to be negative, but it's really using the budget from the next year.
So meaning as more funds come in, it makes that up.
Yeah, so we're encumbering the funds now, so it impacts our budget year for 2025.
Okay.
But a portion of that project will be funded in 2026.
Okay. All right.
And so what we make sure to do is we don't, so if we're in budget year 2025 and this contract gets approved at the fall of, well, right now, once it goes through council, it'll get approved. And so it'll be effective for the remainder of this year and into next year until this time next year. And so we'll make sure not to exceed the amount through 2025. And then what comes in January 1 of 2026, once the budget's approved, will then inform how much of this line item we use. Remember, this is just an on-call with a maximum amount. Right now, there's no dollars that are assigned. Those come as task orders. And so if for some reason between now and the end of the year, this budget line item is not funded, then we do the work through 2025, and then we don't use the on-call through the rest of the year. We don't anticipate that occurring, but that's how we make sure that we don't. That's how we make sure we never exceed what the actual year-over-year budget amount is.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. All right, why don't I call for a motion for item 6B as written?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Move on to item 6C.
So Chair, I'll be taking this one too.
Okay, go ahead.
Do I still have, yes I do. Okay, so like I just said, this is our annual contract renewal. So this is for electrical instrumentation and controls contracts. So these are all basically the brains of the systems for our treatment plant, pump stations, control systems out there. So you can see essentially we have the Allen Water Treatment Plant. We have emergency backup power and main power. So there's a lot of electricity run water systems. And then we utilize these contracts for ongoing process optimization, redundancy, focusing on single points of failure, all those kinds of things. So these are all things that were identified in the original 2020 master plan that we now programmatically address over time. So in 2021, we went out for an RFP. These are electrical contractors, and so they do the actual hardwiring work for our systems. And we went out for an RFP in 2021, selected 3 contractors, Gilmore, McDade, and Power Solutions. And so this is one of those instances where the line item amount is $500,000. We are requesting 3 not to exceed contracts or on-calls for these 3, with the idea that between the 3 will not exceed $500,000. So what that means is that any one of these could utilize the full $500,000, or it's some combination of the 3 to not exceed the $500,000. If we get into a situation where a contract starts to exceed that $500,000 budget line item amount, if it's a minor amount of exceedance, we just handle it to make sure that we don't exceed the overall budget appropriation. If we start to get into significant exceedances, that's when we'll come back and notify the board and the council. But typically the way we manage these types of contracts is we manage to that budgeted amount. unless there's some unforeseen issue, at which point we ensure that we don't exceed the total appropriation for the water enterprise fund budget. So on the instrumentation side, again, same kind of thing. We did a statement of qualifications released in April of 2022. We had 2 contractors selected, Huffman Engineering and Timberline. In this instance, they would be 2 on-calls not to exceed $250,000. Again, the line item amount is $250,000, so same type of thing applies. And just this past year, the majority of the work that we did was actually with Huffman Engineering. One of the other reasons in this circumstance where it's helpful for us is sometimes in electrical projects, being able to get multiple pricings from the on-calls helps to keep them a little more competitive, because they know they're not just the singular on-call, and that's because this is more predicted ongoing programmatic work. So we like to have a few that we can get multiple pricing quotes from to ensure that we're getting the best value for the customers. So the recommendation is that for the EI&C project, that we approve these new on-calls as the next renewal for these on-calls, so that we can continue the programmatic approach for electrical instrumentation and control improvements for the utility system. I'm available for questions. Yeah, sorry.
Yep. No, you got it.
Chair Moore, it's Cami again. I want to make sure that I understood what was said there kind of towards the end. So multiple contractors, understand that, but so are these going to be, do you do mini bids each time for those to compare the prices, or do you rotate, or is there just flexibility in how you award the work since there are multiples?
It actually depends on the project. So in the instance of the electrical contractors, if I go back to the 3 electrical contractors, each one of these electrical contractors has different focus capabilities, and almost they're, from a size perspective, can handle different types of projects. So if we think that one contractor is better suited for a project, we'll utilize that on-call with that contractor. If it's a contract that we think multiple contractors could equally address, we'll sometimes get those multiple bids. The idea of the on-call is that we trust that we're getting the best value pricing from the contractor, because they're being provided in the on-call with the utility. So to answer your question, it depends on the project.
Okay. And then final question, that RFP was done in December of 2021. When can we expect all of this to go back out to bid?
So per the city's procurement policies, we have the option to award after an RFP and then do 4 renewal options. So this is the 3rd renewal for each of these contractors. So we would have this year and then another renewal option should we choose to take it. And then we will put it out for RFP after that.
And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but on the integration and controls, we originally had, I believe it was 4 contractors, and we reduced that down to 2 because we were finding that the other 2 that we had originally released an on-call to were non-responsive when we were looking to them to help us with these types of projects. So in that instance, we reduced it down from 4 to 2. And once we get through the renewal, so I guess the reason why I say that is if a contractor is not performing well, we don't just automatically renew the contract. We make sure that they're providing the services as we expect, with the pricing as we would expect to be reasonable and competitive.
Great. Thank you so much.
Floor is open. Go ahead.
May I ask a question? So does that mean, Peter, that let's say a company is not performing well? Does that mean that they get paid for that full year and then they're out the door, or is it that at any time during this interaction you can eliminate them?
So right now, what's being approved today is just an on-call amount. So it's a maximum amount that we could utilize that contractor for. So with this approval, they get paid $0. It's the subsequent contract that we work with them on specific pricing on a specific project that we would negotiate that project. So there might be a project that's an $80,000 electrical system upgrade, and so that's a specific project that comes off of the total $250,000 available as the first $80,000. So if a contractor's not performing, we will work with them on their existing contract or task orders if they have any, and we will finish those projects out. But oftentimes what we'll do is we'll not award additional specific task orders. In the instance where we haven't issued them anything, then the approval goes away, and then there's no money spent for the contract. So this is just the available mechanism to utilize them up to that contract amount.
But what if they did a job and they didn't do a good job and they're not reliable? If there is cost involved in fixing the pre-existing problem they created, is that something that you can go back to them and
I would say it depends. And because we actually do run into this. We run into situations where the expected product or service provided by the contractor doesn't meet what we expect it to be, and we work through the contract. So the contract has very defined provisions, and so we go back. We ultimately go back to the contract, because the contract defines what recourse we have specific to workmanship and warranty and all those kinds of things. And if we deem that a project hasn't met the needs satisfactorily, we have contract retainage, so we don't pay out all of it until we're sure that we're satisfied with the product. And so we have some contracts right now that we've been holding on to retainage and a final pay application for over a year because we're not fully satisfied with the product we've been provided. So we use the contracts to our benefit to ensure that whatever product we have contracted for is the product we expect that we should be getting.
Thank you, Peter.
Looking at this, so for electrical, it's not 500,000 total, it's a contract for each one of the contractors, correct?
Yeah, so it's an on-call amount. So it's basically it's a task order contract, so the contract's in place. So we don't have to negotiate a new contract. And that on-call has a maximum available amount that we can use of up to $500,000 in this contract year. When this gets approved, it approves $0 to that contractor. All it does is approve the contract and the availability to then come back with additional task orders or contracts as part of this contract for projects that could total up to a total of $500,000.
Between the three of them.
So the line item is $500,000. We make each one of these on-calls $500,000 because we don't know if in 1 year we might use one contractor predominantly. Maybe it's an availability issue, maybe it's a pricing issue, maybe it's a project issue. But we like to have the availability to use any one of the contracts up to the total budget line item amount, or any amount that's a combination of the three.
Okay, so one could use 300,000, another one could use 150,000, and the other could be 50,000, And we're good. I'm looking at the agenda and it's really confusing where they each say 500, 500,
Yep.
500. And I'm like, I need to clarify for those that might be reading that along with us, so.
Yeah, it's a mechanism that we use to facilitate ease in contracting. And so again, this doesn't approve any money to the contractor. The subsequent task orders do that. Specific project jobs do that piece. All this does is establish the base contract that we use with an upper limit for the year of what it can be used for these on-call services.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Peter, let me just try to clarify that for a little bit. So I get, each of these contracts is at their own level, and honestly, the contractor has no responsibility to manage across 3 contracts, right? The contractor, any one contractor only knows they won't go over 500. So when this aggregate limit that's applied, where you say it's there, what does that mean in terms of where is it? Is it because of it's part of the budgeting process and the approved budget, or where does that aggregate limit get codified, so to speak?
That's exactly right. It's in the budget line item. So
Okay.
this goes to a specific budget line item that has a $500,000 budget line item number. And so we put these 3 on-call contracts in place so that we could use any one of the 3, any combination of 0, 500,000, or as Councilmember Wright said, 300,000, 150, 50, any combination of the 3 so that we have 3 different available contractors, because sometimes they're not available because of workload. Sometimes they have different expertise. It gives us some flexibility, but the budget line item is what sets the total amount that we spend across these 3 contracts, across these 3 on-call contracts.
So that's where you don't, we're approving these contracts, but there's that separate thing that limits your ability to exceed the 500,000 across the contract. So that's what's, to Councilmember Wright's point. I think that's the part that you don't see here, but it's the budget process that governs that. So we're not
Right.
The board's not approving in excess of 500. The board's not approving a change in the budget.
Yes, it looks like.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
no,
go
I
ahead.
was going to just echo what Peter was saying. That's exactly correct. In all of our contracts and under state law, we can't spend what's not appropriated. Also, from an administrative standpoint, as invoices come in against those contracts, that's monitored by the city's procurement department, and they do a really great job at making sure that those invoices aren't ever exceeding the contract amount. And if there is a situation where that's happening or they're getting close, departments are notified so that we can comply with the contract amount.
And so I'd like to add one clarifying point on this in terms of how the enterprise fund itself operates. And so a budget is a budget that assumes a budgeted amount. And there are times that those line items spend under, and sometimes that they spend over. So if we see a situation where there's a project that this line item exceeds 500,000 because it becomes 550,000, what we make sure is that the overall annual appropriation is not exceeded, because in that instance there was some situation where it made sense to do whatever that project was because of need. And that's how all of our budget line items work, is we manage to the budgeted line item, and sometimes they go under and sometimes they go over. If they go way over, then we change how we budget the next year. So if we came in and we had a budgeted line item of 500,000, through the course of the year we end up with 700,000, then in the next year's budget we would come back through and say, hey, we need to update this budget line item to 700,000 because obviously we underestimated what that was. But what we ensure from an enterprise fund standpoint is that we don't exceed the appropriation council. So if we were to go slightly over on this line item, we would make sure that there are other line items that are spending under, so we don't exceed that appropriation. And so that's how we manage the 300 line items that we have in the budget to make sure that we're managing to the budget.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. The appropriation is more at the macro level. But yeah, if you realize 500 is not cutting it and we needed to double it, you would then build that into your go forward budget.
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to suggest we go ahead and move to a motion. If I could get one for items 6C 1 through 5 as written.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. There's no old business tonight. So moving staff's choice. Starting with the customer meter refund update.
So I will take this one. This is a quick update in July of last year. We came to the board with some policy changes on how we were charging for meter pits when a customer would move from a flat rate to metered service. And in that policy update, we changed how we were charging for meter pits, equipment, and labor, in that we would only require customers to pay for the meter. And we wanted to make sure that, the person that changed out their meter the day before that policy was put in place was essentially made whole. So we went and we did a look back for 2 years, which is standard for when we issue refunds to customers. We did a look back over 2 years to see which of those customers had paid for meter pit, labor, and other equipment. And we refunded 32 customers within the city of Englewood for a total of $23,781.02. We just wanted to come back because we had committed to the board that we would let you know what that looked like.
Yeah, this is that difference between it was $1,100 versus we revised it to $334, I think, plus or minus. And this was to capture that 2-year period immediately beforehand. So it took us a little bit longer because we were focused a little bit on some billing system stuff. But we wanted to let you know that we did make it whole. So that has been resolved.
Very good.
Okay, I have the next one, which is, so item B is the utilities strategic direction update to city council. So it says September 22nd on there. We were just notified that is moving to October 13th as a study session. And essentially what this is we want to invite the Water and Sewer Board to either listen into that meeting or come to that meeting because it's essentially an update of where we started in 2020 to where we were in 2023 when we did the update in March of 2023 to where we are today comprehensively across utilities. And so it's to really report back to council and the citizenry of where the funding has gone, what the work has been completed, because a lot of this work the community just doesn't see. I mean, the community doesn't necessarily see massive improvements to the electrical systems at the water plant, also critical to the operation of the water plant. So we're providing an overarching, comprehensive review of where we were in 20 to 23 to where we are today, so that both the board, the council, and the community can understand what's been done in the water system over the last 5 years.
Any questions? Is that it, Peter, for staff's choice?
It is.
Okay. Number 9 is just board members' choice. Is there anything the board wishes to raise? Hearing none, we'll move to everyone's favorite number 10. And we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.